Hello, my beautiful souls. I am so excited today, guys, because I have a guest on. My guest today is Dr. Jacob Lieberman. He had wrote one of the most profound books that I have read, and the book is named Light Medicine of the Future. Dr. Jacob also has other books you guys can check out as well. And the reason why I brought him on today is because if you guys are familiar with my background, for those of you who aren't, I had a very profound spiritual awakening. And through this awakening, I was told that I was a light body and that I had to get used to being a light body or understanding what that was. So as a result, I've been on this quest of what is a light body, color therapy, sound vibration, everything to do with this topic matter. So this is why I'm so excited to be able to talk to Dr. Jacob Lieberman today. So my first question to Dr. Jacob Lieberman is, how did you get on this path? I love you guys so much, and I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did.
That I discovered anything, but I was fortunate enough that certain things occurred in my life, earlier in my life, that have gradually evolved into where I am today. So let me begin that when I was in the midst of my medical training and between my second and third year of training, at the third year level is when you go and you begin doing your clinical work. So you actually start working with patients. And a young child came to me, parents brought them in, and they couldn't see out of one eye. Now, there was nothing wrong with their eye that anyone could see, but they had what is called amblyopia, or a common term is lazy eye. So they didn't require a prescription for glasses. There was no disease. They just couldn't see beyond the big E on the eye chart. And I didn't know what to do. I'd never encountered. This was one of my first patients. So I went to the clinic doctor and I said, this is the situation, what should I do? And he didn't know exactly what to do either, but he said, you know, there's a guy in Alabama, his last name is Otwell, and he has this little device with a yellow filter that's used for this kind of thing. Why don't you order one of those and try it? And it was really very, very simple. It was just looking at a yellow light that would go on and off and on and off for a very short time each day. I did that with this little girl. And after 10 days, her eyesight was almost 20/20.
Wow.
And I said, oh my God, what happened here? I had no idea. I read up what Dr. Otwell thought was going on, but nobody really knew. And that was my introduction to the fact that light has a very potent impact upon us. Then I started becoming sort of aware of the biological effects of light, because prior to 1900, 90% of the US population worked outdoors. So we spent our day in Mother Nature, under natural light, breathing air, listening to sounds of birds, and so on. And since 1900, over 90% of us are working indoors, under everything that's artificial. Many of our schools have no windows, so your eyes can't even escape. So I was very intrigued by that and started looking at what are the problems that develop from just being inside under artificial lighting. And I had a mentor, a man named Dr. John Ott, who had made some groundbreaking discoveries about the impact of light on plants and on animals. And what he started noticing is that kids in the classroom under artificial lights had greater problems learning and had a tendency for increased hyperactivity. They also had a lot more cavities. And he discovered a lot of different things about them. And so I got very, very intrigued. And in the mid-70s, I started utilizing color as a therapeutic tool by way of the eyes, looking at different colors, or what we call wavelengths of light, through the eyes. And I found that it could improve one's ability to learn, one's ability to read, that it had an effect on expanding one's field of vision, or what you might call their awareness. So I spent years working in that particular way. And then in the late 70s and early 80s, I got in touch with something really profound, because I was trained to utilize color like a cookbook approach. If you have this problem, do this. If you have this problem, do that. It's sort of the same way we use pharmaceutical agents. We treat things to deal with symptoms and so on. And while it was effective, it didn't work all the time. And so I started questioning it, and I started doing something interesting with my patients. I would have them look at different colors or visualize different colors. And I noticed they all had colors they liked and colors that they didn't like so much. And I thought that was very, very interesting. And I noticed when they looked at colors they didn't like, it started triggering up emotional upset. And I said, wow, this is really interesting. And believe me, many times while I was experimenting, I had big emotional upsets that came up. And so what I realized is a little bit of light can go a long way. That even the smallest amount of light can actually trigger a tremendous amount going on in the body. And later I learned that when a single photon of light interacts with the eye, the whole brain lights up, just to show you how light impacts our neurology and our physiology. So I started looking at this interesting relationship with color. And what I realized is what we perceive as color is just different vibrations of the electromagnetic spectrum. Color is a perceptual phenomenon. In other words, it's not out in the world, it's within our own awareness. And what we perceive or are aware of has to do with the interaction of one of those vibrations with the perceptual mechanism we have, whether we're a human or we're a creature of some sort or another. And then this mysterious quality of humanity that we call consciousness, that people speak about as if they understand, but very few people actually have a sense of what that actually is. So we can get to that a little bit later. Okay. And what I began to realize is that when we imagine a color or see a color that we like, the reason we like it is because the color we're perceiving is made up of different vibrations that we are in resonance with. They are things that we can easily embrace in our lives, just like a best friend that you feel wonderful when you're with. But the colors we're uncomfortable with, they don't resonate with us. We're out of resonance. And so what occurs is they trigger up an aspect of our survival that recoils, moves away from whatever this is, because we sense it as something that is not good for our wellness. Let's just look at it that way. Mm-hmm. And what I discovered over many years is that those colors that we like have to do with the aspects of the light spectrum that we can easily embrace and allow into our bodies to light up all of our different centers. But the colors we're uncomfortable with, those are the ones that we attempt to avoid at any cost because they create disturbance. The problem with that is when those wavelengths of light are not able to enter our system, the portions of our body, what some people call the chakras, which are each associated with different colors, those portions remain in the dark. And so just like putting a plant in the closet where it can't get light and it starts to just not be able to develop, what I typically find is if someone is uncomfortable with a certain color, I usually find they also develop physical problems in the chakra associated with that color. Or they
like malnutrition?
Just like malnutrition, exactly. And they also have other issues that are related to that. For instance, if orange or red is an uncomfortable color, and let's say that it's a woman, she might notice reproductive issues in that part of the body or digestive issues. At the same time, orange, which is the second chakra, is related to when an infant first starts to crawl and connect with something outside itself. In other words, it's related to the foundation of relationship. And so what happens is if orange is an uncomfortable color, very often there's something relationally going on or something that has gone on that keeps that person perhaps insulated from relationships, intimate relationships. And by the way, when I speak about something that has gone on, I don't mean something that happened early in life, in our life. We all say, oh, it happened when I was 3, that's the cause of my issues. One, we will never know when whatever it is occurred, because we are the current day level of evolution and awareness of all of humanity that has preceded us. And so the blueprint that occurs within us is a culmination of tens of millions of years of evolution. We don't know where that particular issue occurred. So it's really important to realize that the mind does not know. There is something that is aware of it, but the mind typically does not know. That's why the word belief means the opposite of truth. I said once when I used to practice medicine, it's often not the disease that kills you, it's the diagnosis. It's the labeling of things that doesn't allow it to change. So in terms of light, one of the things that would be valuable for your audience to understand is this. Light enters the body via the eyes and via the skin. 98% via the eyes, 2% via the skin, okay? Most of the light that enters the eye is not for eyesight and vision. It goes through the eyes to the parts of the brain that regulate all of our life-sustaining functions. When light enters the eye, 3/4 of it goes to the site of the body's biological clock. Why is that important? You've heard in your life, timing is everything. It is. It is. The timing of our physiology must be in alignment or unity with the universe's timing or Mother Nature. If the timing is off, our system will be out of sync and will create something called dis-ease. We won't be comfortable. It's like being chronically jet lagged, even though you haven't traveled. So timing is absolutely critical. So the main purpose of light entering the eye, aside from its function to allow us to see, is to tell every cell in the body, all 100 trillion of them, what time of the day is it? What time of the year is it? Am I in Maui, Hawaii? Am I in Marrakesh? Am I in London? Am I in Japan? Why does it do that? Because every cell of the body uses that information to orchestrate its internal function and then synchronize with Mother Nature. Why? Because the primary purpose of life is to bring us into a state of oneness. Everything we are trying to accomplish, becoming more present, more evolved, and all that, that is what Mother Nature does naturally. And what I'm sharing with you is not just an idea. In 2017, the Nobel Prize for Medicine and Physiology was awarded to 3 US scientists who discovered the molecular basis by which each of our cells, using the information about what time of the day is it or what time of the night is it, uses that information to orchestrate its function for the purpose of optimizing wellness. And what was fascinating about that Nobel Prize is it wasn't just for humans. This is what plants do, this is what animals do, and this is what humans do. So essentially, there's a part of our humanity that is continually bringing us into a state of oneness. Oneness. And in other words, there's a mechanism in life that is guiding everything. It's animating the movement of everything, the movement of the planets around the solar system, the movement of the solar system within the context of the universe. Everything is being animated by a guiding force. Let's call it that. It doesn't make any difference whether you call it the Big Bang, or you call it God, or you call it consciousness. It's none of those things. There is no name for this, and names cause us to say, oh, what I'm calling it is better than what you're calling it. There's no name. The only thing we know is something is continually beating our hearts, whether we're aware of it or not. And it has nothing to do with us. There is something that is continually breathing us. It causes our body to expand and then to contract at a certain rhythm. Now, that isn't just the mechanism we call respiration. The heart is doing that. The musculature is doing that. Every cell, every cellular component, all of our blood vessels, our blood pressure, and then you go outside of ourselves, and everything in Mother Nature is also being pulsed, expanded and contracted. The earth itself is measurably expanding and contracting like the universe. So something is entraining all of us into a frequency of wellness, into something that causes everything to go, thank God I'm home. And so then the next question that might come up for people is, well, here Mother Nature is always bringing us into a state of peace as well as it can, because there are stresses in life that just occur. And certain animals like to eat other creatures for lunch. That causes one of them to run and one of them to chase. we don't know who wins that. In life, we have those same kinds of things. Life is difficult. One of the four truths that Buddha first expressed a long time ago. So there are things that are occurring in life all the time that have nothing to do with anything other than it's built in to life. And none of us respond easily to these things. No one feels great when their lover leaves them. No one feels great when they lose their money because they invested into the wrong thing. No one feels great if they get a diagnosis they didn't expect. We're all impacted by these things. Why is that important? Because we're all in the same boat. There's nothing wrong with any of us. We share this particular aspect of life. And so, but there's another aspect that probably comes up. What causes all those things that we say, what's going on? Well, you know, when you came out of your mother, the first thing the doctors did if you were born in a hospital is the nurse or the doctor looked at you to make sure you were breathing because they wanted to make sure you were healthy. The next thing they did, this is years ago, now they know ahead of time, but when I was a kid, they didn't know these things, so they quickly looked down to see, are you male or female? In my case, they gave me a blue blanket. In your case, they gave you a pink one. Mm-hmm. Only two choices. Only two choices. But when you go throughout the world and you look at the plant kingdom or the animal kingdom, you'll see there's an infinite variety of representations that have to do with our hormonal metabolic balance. Of course, we're becoming very aware of that now. But imagine you come into life and you have to be one or the other, but you're neither one.
Mm. Yeah, you're right. Parents do that also. When they get home from the hospital, the whole room is decorated for the child, whether it's a boy or girl, in those colors. You're absolutely right.
And then you get assigned a name, and then you get assigned a religion. Even though when you come into the world, you have no sense of religiosity, you have no sense of preferences, you have no sense of skin coloration, you don't know boy from girl from any other variety, you have no preferences. Why is that? Because we're hardwired for oneness, the same unity that Mother Nature is always reminding us of and bringing us back into. What happens when I assign to you a gender at birth, but you're not that? You're something else in between, because as we know, life is not black or white. Various grays. Well, if you don't fit that, you're ostracized the rest of your life. You feel miserable because you don't fit into something, and your naturalness does not align with what the world says is normal. And that occurs regarding the color of your skin, your gender, your sexual makeup, and so on. So we're born unconditional, and we are assigned all these things that have to do with cultural beliefs. Remember, again,
limiting beliefs.
Well, let's not call them limiting beliefs. Let's go a little further. All beliefs are limiting. Why? The word belief means the opposite of truth. So belief is opinion. What we're really yearning for is truth beyond opinion, seeing outside of the box, as you might say. So hopefully, in not too near future, babies will all be given a rainbow blanket
Mm.
and will be allowed to develop as they are rather than according to what we believe or think. But let's talk about what that does to you. You know, there's a certain point in a baby's development where we say, you know, they should be potty trained by this time. Well, we don't know whether that child is ready. Some kids speak early, some kids speak a little bit later, walk, whatever. So now the child has to evacuate its bowels or has to urinate. And the moment mother or dad senses it, we pick up the child and we say, no, 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 don't do that. And then we put them on the toilet on their little seat. Now this is when you can do it. When that is repeated, all of a sudden you realize that in order to be accepted, what is natural has to become what is normal. And so you learn how to evacuate your bowels at a time that may not be what's normal for you, and only in certain places. And then, of course, as you get a little older and mom and dad are going out, they say, okay, go to the bathroom because we're not going to be able to stop until, 2 hours from now. Now you have to learn to make something happen when it may not be ready to happen. And so we learn how to push and how to pull, but not how to be. So conditioning is the source of probably 99.9% of our pain.
Okay.
Because reality rarely, if ever, matches mentality. And we've all been trained. When I was a kid, the expression was, the mind is a terrible thing to waste. And all of our training in school was that we resolve problems with the mind, we solve them, we have to think, and so on. My life's work, a very large part of it, has been to see, is that true? And I have found that it is not true. And this is after working with maybe 50,000 people and a lot of world-class athletes and high achievers and high performers and so on and so forth. What I'm sharing is this. When I went to school, if one of the kids in school really knew something, the teacher would say, Jennifer knows it by heart. Now I used to think, oh, that must mean they memorized it. But knowing it by heart is knowing it at a deeper level, not a level that you think, a totally different level. And the teacher would always say, your intuition is always right. What they were saying is that there's an aspect of all life that knows before we see, before we hear, before we smell, before we're even aware of anything, that knows whether this is safe or this is not. Mm-hmm. And that system is 100% accurate. It's not accurate some of the time. Pure awareness is 100% accurate because our life and death depends on it. We were trained to do something else, to take everything we sense and then bring it up to committee and play table tennis with it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Like the clothes we wear, like everything. I mean, everything is vibrating. Yeah.
Right. Now, do you realize that the things you think will happen rarely, if ever, happen? I mean, the batting average of the mind is piss poor, terrible. And yet we bank our lives on it. Oh, we have to have a different belief, or we have to think differently, we have to choose differently. And what I'm suggesting to consider is there is something that is aware of what we call mind, that is not mind, it's pure awareness. It's that aspect of our humanity that is aware when we're anxious, that is aware when the mind is in deep conversation with itself, trying to figure out what to do to look good, to pass the test, to make the money we need, all of these things that we do in hopes of creating three things that have never existed, which is to get things right, to have things be predictable, and so on. So all of these things we're trying to do, they don't occur in a world that we say is constantly changing.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing that is actually predictable unless it comes to us, not from us. That guiding force. So, I don't know whether you have children or not, but every mom and every dad that has kids, every so often, and for me all the time, you get a sense, you all of a sudden your child flashes into your awareness, you pick up the phone and they say, oh mommy, I was just thinking about you.
Mm-hmm.
That synchronicity is because we're an undivided, singular organism called life or humanity. So this is a long response to your short question, but that is what brought me to this place. And then if you wish to speak about how do we deal
Yes.
how do we begin to dissolve that conditioning?
Right. Moving away from anxiety, all those kinds of things, and moving into a place of balance, moving into a place of calmness, and having deeper spiritual experiences from the use of color.
What I feel is the current state of the art, which is something that's been developing in me for the last 45 years now. It's based on what I shared earlier. People seem to have different color preferences or different receptivity to different colors. So you have, like I have, certain things in our lives that trigger us. They upset us. Could be an old boyfriend, a prior partner. It could be a business. It could be someone that we think did us wrong. And when we encounter them or that situation, you could say we have an allergic-like reaction. We just want to move away. It's almost like encountering poison oak. We can literally break out in emotional hives. And it's upsetting for us because it not only impacts our psychology, but our physiology simultaneously. So when I discovered that people had preferences around some colors and lack of preferences on others, what I discovered is that when they visualized or looked at colors that they were unreceptive to, it started to awaken old issues within their memory, not only their mental memory, but physiological memory, because when you ingest food, you literally ingest it, digest it, assimilate it, and excrete it. But when you ingest emotions or an experience, and you're not able to metabolize it and excrete it, or what we call let go of it, it is encapsulated. It is like a body of energy that we don't know how to deal with. And so the way that our body takes care of it to protect us is it sequesters it. Now, sequester is a word legally where we take jurors and we hide them away somewhere so they'll have no contact with the real world.
Yeah, energetically, you're holding it somewhere in your body. Yeah.
Yes. And where we sequester it depends on the severity of the event. So if something happened, and again, it's not limited to our lives, most of it occurs with our ancestors. it's such a deep thing. And if it was really traumatic, it sequesters in the bones, literally inside the bones. And so it doesn't come out easily, which is a way of protecting us. But you know, if you and I had each a tuning fork and they were the same note, even though you were in one part of the house and I'm in another, and you don't even know that I'm there, and I gently tap on my tuning fork and it starts to vibrate, if you are holding the same tuning fork, what happens to yours? It starts to vibrate as well. So the same thing with color. I put a pair of glasses on your face with a certain colored filter that only allows certain vibrations to come into your body. That sets a vibratory signature entering your body. Any other vibrations in your body that's identical to that, all of a sudden, because of resonance, starts to vibrate. Now, vibration is very interesting. Vibration causes something that's stuck to get loosened. And it gets loosened not by pushing or pulling or confronting. It gets loosened very gently. It starts to gently shake itself loose. Now, it won't shake itself loose unless the time is right. That's why I said timing is everything. But usually people come to other people for help, even though they're not aware of it, because the timing is right. So what happens when I use filters, if someone is uncomfortable with those, they start to awaken something loose. The key is this: don't push, don't try to make anything happen, because that's called a violation. What I want to share with the person is that the moment that they sense something that may feel a little bit uncomfortable, don't push through it, don't get over it, don't confront it, take the glasses off. Why? Your body has a mechanism that knows, even though it doesn't know how it knows. And that mechanism is seamlessly connected with the intelligence of life. So my work has to do with taking the person through the whole light spectrum in a very systematic way that I've developed. Okay. Where I give them these very simple glasses that they use at home for very small periods of time to gently, and that's a key word, gently allow things that are ready to surface. Why is gently important? Because you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And a person is only going to open their heart where they feel safe. And so I never had to have an idea of what another person needs. And I don't see anyone that I have the pleasure of working with or mentoring as having a problem that needs fixing. I just see them just as I see myself, a person that is both strong and a person that's also incredibly vulnerable. I've had my own nervous breakdowns. I've had panic attacks. I've been depressed. I've been frightened. That's what allows me to be human and gentle with another person, because I realize that that is such an important piece, is the quality of the friendship that we have. We would never violate each other. So I utilize a set of 13 different glasses that I have developed over many, many years of developing this approach. And I've developed a protocol where people use these glasses, not based on time, but based on how comfortable they're able to breathe with these glasses. Because whenever we encounter anything that doesn't feel safe, the first thing that happens is the respiratory system constricts. So the breath is held. And so I allow them to do it in a way that feels safe. And the moment it doesn't feel comfortable, boom, just take the glasses off. And that's all that you need to do for that day. And so a very little can go a very long way. And it's very powerful, and it's very deep, and it's also very gentle. And so I've developed an approach that I utilize with people that come to me that want to mentor with me. I give them a kit as part of that work we do together. And then we meet weekly for them to report what's occurred and for us to have a conversation about what all that means. And some people just purchase the kit and utilize it at home and so on, if that's, what they feel is best for them.
How long does it usually take to get through the whole process of the glasses and stuff like that? Does it take a long time? Does it take a couple of years? Is it quick? How's the time frame on that? Or it just depends on the person?
Something that has taken millions of years to evolve doesn't make a quick U-turn.
Yeah.
When you're turning a big ocean vessel, it's a very slow process and gradual process. If you try to do it quickly, you can turn the boat over.
Okay.
So how long? The protocol that I've developed is 28 days. They do this process for 28 days.
Okay.
Does that mean it's finished? Sometimes yes. But what I do after that, and it could take longer because I don't want them pushing anything. I want them to keep repeating the same thing until they get to the point that their system can go, and they will know when that is. But for those that can do the 28-day protocol, then I might say, take a month off or take 2 months off. And when you feel, try it again. Each time they go, it takes them even deeper. Now, there's also a process that I put together with this, which is a letter writing process.
Okay.
I've developed what I call a letter of completion form. And so one of the things I ask people is there anyone in your life that, if you had an opportunity and there was no consequences for it, you'd like to share with them something? In other words, is there anyone you feel unfinished with? They don't have to be alive, and there's no consequences, and you never have to speak to the person themselves. Who would those people be? So people will give me, my mom, my dad, my stepfather, my older brother, whatever it is. They make a list. As this process is working, and as they feel, if something comes up regarding that person, they have a form that allows them to write a letter that is incredibly thorough. The prefixes of each line allow you to cover everything from the most superficial levels of anger to the deepest levels of love and affection. And it covers it all. And so what happens is, as the work with color is gently inviting things that are ready to surface, the letter writing process allows you to empty the trash. As it comes up,
Makes sense.
You write the letters, and the moment you're finished writing the letter, you shred it, or you burn it, or you don't even read it. Just the process of writing it is getting it out of your system. And there's a process where you rewrite these letters with some time in between to each person until you get to the point where the only thing that comes up around that person is either a love and appreciation or just a sense of neutrality.
Hmm.
And when that occurs, that's complete.
I understand where you're getting with this, because I had an experience where I had a person in particular, people in particular, that I was really having a difficult time with. And I had pain in my back. I went to a with the needles.
Acupuncturist.
Thank you. I went to
Acupuncturist.
acupuncturist, and they said to me, "You need to have a talk with that person." They didn't even know. They just like they could feel energetically. You need to have a talk with that person. And I kept holding on to it. So energetically, they knew it was there. And my daughter says to me one day, she is like, "Mom, do you think, maybe you should just let that go?" And I was just like, she's like, "It's only hurting you." And I was like, you know what? And I thought all of a sudden, I was like, you know what? Why not? And I literally, because I can feel energetically, I felt this weight lift off me. It was just like, it's literally like that. And after that, it was gone. And the pain was gone in my back. So yes, you're absolutely right. It's energetically there. It's just, how do you release that?
But because of empirical results, in other words, I came upon this by accident, and each time I did it with someone, it was like an experiment. It wasn't, this is going to happen. It was, okay, what happens? And when I started to see this thousands of times and thousands of times, all of a sudden I realized that, wow, there was something here that was very similar to what life does. What life does is it automatically brings into our life things that need to be brought to the surface. That's what propels evolution to move forward. On an energetic level, we don't attract what we want, we attract what we need. And what we need is what spurs the evolutionary process. That's why through life, we go through so many different things. And then when we get to the end of our life, and I have asked this question to over 100 people over the age of 85, starting with my parents who lived into their mid-90s. And I said, you've lived a long time. What have you found that you could control? And all 100 of them had the same response. They all started laughing. And I looked at them and they said, it's not in our hands. In other words, all this idea about I'm creating my own life and I'm the one that's in charge and I'm this, that is all the persona. That is all the conditioning. When you go to a Broadway show in New York, an actor, you know what they look like, you know what they sound like, and so on, all of a sudden is dressed in an outfit, in a costume, that you have no idea who they are. They don't look like the person, they don't sound like the person. Is that the person? No, that's the persona. The persona. What we call our personality is the persona that is the result of the conditioning. I am a man, my name is Jacob, this is my religion, I'm a doctor, all of that stuff, none of which is me, it's all the persona. Persona comes from an Italian word personare, which means to peer through. In other words, who we actually are is not the persona, not the mask, but what is looking through the mask. It's not the chatter of the mind. It's this other mechanism that doesn't speak at all, but is noticing that the mind is active. That's our essence. That's the pure awareness. That's the ocean of oneness that has no point of view. It just sees all that is.
So you're basically saying just taking those parts of yourself and cleaning those parts until it's wiped away enough so that you can perceive that awareness instead of being that personality.
I'm not sure there are actually parts of ourselves, but I hear exactly what you're saying.
One time I had heard a
But
Buddhist monk, what he had talked about, he said, think about yourself like your soul. He's like, well, he's like, don't take offense by this. He's like, but think about yourself as like a dirty shirt. He's like, and you wash that shirt and you're washing it and you're washing it. There's still stuff on it. And you keep washing until it's completely, you try to get it completely to that white shirt aspect again. So I feel like what you're saying is like, we have this persona, we have these personalities that we've taken on. We've had these programs that we've been subjugated to in this reality. And until we start to kind of unprogram ourselves and to release these things, that's when we can start to see the pureness and be in peace, because we know that we're all interconnected.
yes and no.
Okay. Okay.
So this is where there's a stuckness that happens.
Okay.
You see, what you're saying is, what do I have to do to wash that shirt?
Right.
But you have to understand that the persona has a life of itself and doesn't want to eliminate itself.
Mm.
So everything that comes from the persona, or what you call the mind,
Mm-hmm.
is a little bit of a trick. It looks like it's cleaning itself, but it always maintains. It's sort of like cutting the grass. You cut all the weeds, you chop them down from the top, and you think, they're gone, I'm free. But the roots are growing laterally. So each time you cut the top of the weeds off, you get more weeds growing in different places. So
Gotcha.
trying to approach awakening through one's mind is like trying to catch a wild dog in the Costco parking lot. You'll never catch it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not possible. So let's see if we could look at this differently. Do you control your heart?
No. As far as by perceiving that I'm not controlling my heart, sure. It's
Right.
something that happens subconsciously.
It's unconscious, isn't it? It's just happening by
Yes.
itself,
Right.
right? Is there any aspect of your physiology that you're controlling? No. Is there any aspect of Mother Nature that you're controlling? Is it you that says to the sun, okay, you can rise now, or you have to set now?
No.
So there's nothing inside of us and nothing outside of us that we're in control of. And yet,
Right.
we have this idea. If I can just figure out what to do, I can fix myself. But
Right.
that's against everything, and I'll share with you why. So now let's talk about scientific fact. There is nothing physiologically inside of us that is designed to initiate action.
Okay.
The reason we don't control anything within us is because everything within us is responding to something.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes our heart speeds up, not because we want it to speed up, because it's responding to something. The something it's responding to is that guiding or animating force that I mentioned before.
So when you decide to change your diet, that's the same thing? Like that's the force that's telling you, look, it's time for you to change your diet.
When you decide
Like,
to what?
for instance, like you decide to change your health. Like you decide, okay, I'm going to be a vegetarian. Like I've been a vegetarian now for 10 years. So I decided, okay, I'm going to be a vegetarian. This is the right thing to do and for my body. And I'm going to stop eating processed foods and I'm going to eliminate these chemicals from my diet, so forth, so on. You're making an active approach to change that. And you're making those choices every day to say, okay, I'm going to go to this restaurant, but this restaurant only has this option. I'm still going to go with this option just to avoid that aspect of meat. So you're saying it's something that's to do with the guiding force.
It seems that way, but that's not actually what's going on.
Okay.
So let's imagine that you're interested in this and you say, I want to know how my free will is impacting my life. I've decided to be a vegetarian. I've decided to go. So we take you and we put you in the most sophisticated MRI in the world. And we put you in there, and this MRI is looking at your brain and is determining when your brain knows something in relation to when you decide something.
Right.
Okay? So
Okay.
we put you in this device, and then we put a screen above your head. And the first test we make is really easy. It's about flavors of ice cream. So we keep going across with pictures or with names: chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, coconut, whatever. And you have a button in either hand. And when your free will says, this is the one I want, you press the button. And that's the way we think it works. I decide I want chocolate. That tells my brain what I want, and then I go to the store to buy a pint of Haagen-Dazs. Or in your case, it's going to be a coconut-based ice cream rather than a dairy-based ice cream. Okay?
Yeah.
And you think that's the way it works because that's what our mind has told us.
Right.
But when you look at the brain, you discover, wow, 10, 11 seconds, which is like millions of years in brain time, your brain already knows you want chocolate and it is heading in that direction way before you even see the chocolate coming up.
I see.
So what I'm sharing with you is the reason we're alive is because we can't interfere with our hearts, with our blood pressure, with the mechanisms in life that keep us alive. So even though you think you've decided to become a vegetarian, something else at work all of a sudden came into your awareness, and one morning you woke up and it was clear, gee, I don't feel a taste for meat any longer. And the moment, and you have this epiphany. It just rises. You don't even know from where it comes. And then you're speaking to a good friend an hour later, and you say to them, boy, I had a great idea today. I'm not going to eat meat anymore. So now you've taken a gift that came to you free of charge, and that persona says, it's my idea. I came up with it. I'm the smarty pants that knows.
I got you. Okay.
So why do I want to clarify this? Because all of what we're speaking about has nothing to do with doing.
Okay.
It all has to do with being. We don't become in balance through what we do. We naturally move into what you would call balance, which is actually a continual motion through the process of being. The work with color is just fine-tuning one's awareness so that they don't push through their boundaries, respecting the mechanism that knows, that is beyond the mind, and allowing it to open in a timely manner that is at your maximum potential. Not what we think, but that which is animating life that seemingly creates this miraculous experience. So why this is such an important point is pretty much every time I'm interviewed, with rare exception, people say to me, well, what do I have to do to get there?
Yeah.
Well, I'm like you, except I'm maybe twice as old as you. And I've spent years doing everything. I have tried every dietary means you can imagine, from vegetarian on to not eating at all. I've tried every imaginable meditative technique and therapies and so on and so forth. And people say, was that the thing? Actually, none of those things were the thing. If there was a thing, it's what happens in my life every day. The simplest little acts of kindness that happen when someone at
Yeah.
my favorite restaurant brings me a cup of coffee. It's the interactions that I have with my son or my daughter who are adults. It's having a beautiful conversation like this with a person I've never met.
Mm.
You said in the beginning, do you want to know the questions? No, I have no interest. I don't want to
Great.
know anything in advance. I love the surprise. The not knowing is where the excitement is. So here we thought we were going to go in a certain direction.
Mm.
And life has its own compass, its own GPS. And when we are able, through grace, and God knows how this occurs, it's magic,
Yeah.
to allow us to be guided by the GPS of this universe, that's when we begin to experience contentment. Something that is different than, oh, life is great today, because life has its own turmoil and none of us escape that. But we feel a sense of contentment. Just having a conversation like this makes my day begin with a beautiful spark. So it's those small things that make me smile.
Oh, thank you so much, Jacob. I really, really appreciate it. Please let us know where we can find you, and and also I'll put a link in the description box below for more information for your work.
Yeah,
But I'm
I
gonna.
will. People can go to my website, which is jacobliberman.org. And obviously they can follow us on social media and so on. My website is not a marketing site. It isn't come there, get this for free, I'll give you this. None of that stuff. It's hopefully something that will aesthetically be pleasing for your eyes and provide some food for wisdom, something that you'll say, oh, that feels exciting to me. Again, I'm grateful that you've invited me, and we'll do this again sometime.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.